So we got lots of Super Bowl potential injuries for both teams. Let's start with the first main player, Nick Foles, quarterback of the Philadelphia Eagles. He really only has contusion of his ribs, not really a fracture, which is really, really good news. The only thing that you have to worry about on quarterbacks that have bruised ribs is the fact that the opposite team knows that, and so they will be targeting that to make sure that it really compromises his ability on the field. The good news is that he'll probably be wearing a flak jacket to limit the pain, and he'll probably have a significant amount of pain management so that he doesn't feel it through the game. Other injuries to be worried about with Nick Foles is also he has a history of elbow injuries, dating back to last season, but only grade 1 injuries, and it's on his throwing arm, which is, kind of the reason why he's at an above average and not peak health, because, in the Super Bowl, you really go after it. Everyone gets very, very aggressive, so the risk of injury gets higher, but also, even on an injured extremity, it's just not maybe able to be at peak health. So Nick Foles is at above average at 71.58%, not at peak, but good enough. And the good news is, and the key is that he's only at 6.9% low injury risk. Now, let's go to our next player, and let's talk about Ajayi. Ajayi has multiple ankle injuries in the past. He's had a current ankle injury, and reports show that his hand was wrapped as well. Most likely a soft tissue contusion. There's not really anything reported on the official injury report, but look at his numbers. Look at what our algorithm is saying. 22.56% chance of injury, which is at an elevated injury risk, close to a high injury risk, and his health performance factor is 54% right now. This is not good news for Ajayi, mainly because he's been banged up pretty much over the last couple of years. He had knee issues dating back to college, which also affected his draft status in 2011. He's had a torn ACL in that knee, so look for that knee to potentially get affected with the whole aggressive play in the Super Bowl. All right, let's continue. Let's talk about the next player. Everybody's talking about Tom Brady. Everybody always talks about Tom Brady every single year because they're in the Super Bowl pretty much every single year. He had a dislocation of that thumb, which caused an inside-out laceration that he got stitched up for. It is located. As long as his pain management is fine, and as long as his stability of that thumb is fine, there should be no impact to his strength of throw and accuracy of throw. And, Tom Brady is a very accurate passer, so I don't foresee this to be an issue. He's had high injury risk mainly because of all the previous injuries he's had and mainly because of the number of games he's played in the NFL and his age. But when you talk specifically about his throwing ability, this dislocation and laceration should not affect his ability to throw. All right, let's talk about the next player, which is his tight end, Rob Gronkowski. Suffered a pretty significant head injury. Reports have it that he actually had a brief moment of loss of consciousness, which is not a good sign. It elevates his concussion grade to a grade 2, and therefore that requires more than a week of recovery time, according to our algorithm and according to likely the NFL concussion protocol. The good news for the Patriots is they really don't have to address this because there's 2 weeks of recovery that he has because of 2 weeks of rest before the Super Bowl. So the good news is that he has 2 weeks to recover and likely will clear concussion protocol in 2 weeks. Now here's the risky news. This is a pretty significant head injury. And Gronk had a previous concussion in 2013, pretty far spaced, so it's not too much of a concern. However, because of his style of play, because of his aggressive nature of play, and because of all the other injuries that he sustained previously, if he gets another head injury like this in the Super Bowl, he not a significant risk to his career, but there is a percentage risk to his career that he may be setting himself up for long-term neurological implications if he sustains another hit like he did in the last game.